Here we start with a blank staff. The vertical black bars are called bar lines, and they divide the staff into measures. And there's a bar line that it just added. This staff has been split into 2 measures. Pretty easy so far. Then we go to the next thing. Time signature defines the amount and type of notes that each measure contains. So going back to our CU again, once again, this time signature 4/4 time is going to tell me how many notes and what kind of notes can I fit in one measure, in one unit. Time signatures define the amount and type of notes that each measure contains. The first measure is in 4/4 time, and the second measure here is in 3/4 time. The first measure, which is in 4/4 time, contains 4 quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. The second measure is in 3/4 time, and that measure contain 3 quarter notes. 1, 2, 3. The reason that this measure contains 4 quarter notes is because the number on top is how many beats per measure we can have in a measure. How many beats we can have a measure. So since this number is 4, there's 4 beats per measure. 4 beats per measure is only half of the equation. The second part of that is that the bottom number tells us what kind of note receives one of those beats. So in 4/4 time, we have 4 beats per measure, and then the quarter note, when a 4 is on the bottom, the quarter note receives 1 beat. So essentially we can have 4 quarter notes per measure, or the equivalent of 4 quarter notes. In 3/4 time, we have 3 beats per measure. And once again, the quarter note receives one of those beats. So in 3/4 time, we can only have 3 quarter notes, or the equivalent of 3 quarter notes in that measure. The top number always means there are blank beats, or you could say pulses, per measure. So, going to this example, our top number is 6. So if it asks you what does the 6 mean in 6/8 time, you would use our equation, start with the words there are, and then you would put 6 beats or pulses per measure. You don't have to put pulses. I would accept there 6 beats per measure. Question number 2 on the post test is going to ask, what does the bottom number mean? And more kids get mixed up with this. The bottom number means that not that there are so many beats per measure, but what kind of note receives the beat. So the sentence that you need to remember to write in your post test starts with, the blank note receives 1 beat, or you could use the word pulse. Either of those would work. So when we go back to 6/8, we've already answered that there's 6 beats per measure. When the 8th note is on the bottom, we say the 8th note, E-I-G-H-T-H, receives 1 beat or pulse. Here's a different time signature, 3/2. In a 3/2 time signature, go back to your equation. Top number is there are blank beats. The number in 3/2 is 3. So we say there are 3 beats per measure, and that would get you a right answer on that one. And the bottom number is 2. So when the bottom number is 2, the half note gets the beat since the 2 is on the bottom. So this would change to the half note receives 1 beat. So to review the time signatures that we've just been through in our tutorial, and you can kind of see them, how they all go together. I'm going to go to this page, put the screen up so it's not so much. Here's our first time signature, 4/4. Hopefully you will be able to answer this by writing out the sentence there, starting with there are. When the number is 4 on top, you're going to write out 4 beats or pulses per measure. Remember, you can use beats or pulses. Always start this top number out with there are. For the bottom number, if the bottom number is 4, you're going to say quarter note receives 1 beat. And make sure you write out quarter, not do a fraction. This will not be correct. All right, let's go to the next time signature to practice. There are 3 beats per measure. When the 3 is on the top, there are 3 beats per measure. When the 4 is on the bottom, just like before, the quarter note receives 1 beat or pulse. Quarter note was on the bottom here, quarter note's on the bottom here when the 4 is on the bottom. Next one is a little trickier because the 4 is not on the bottom. In 6/8 time, there are 6 beats per measure or pulses per measure. 6. There are 6. 6 is on the top. When the 8 is on the bottom, it's no longer the quarter note receiving the beat. It's the 8th note receiving 1 beat. And then our last example is 3/2. 3's on the top, so there are 3 beats per measure. When the 2 is on the bottom, the half note receives 1 beat. Going back to our tutorial, 6/8 time, 3/2 time. In 6/8 time, we can have 6/8 notes. In 3/2 time, we can have 3 half notes, or the equivalent of 3 half notes. This chart displays all the time signatures that we discussed, and we kind of just walked through that. 4/4 time, 3/4, 6/8, 3/2. So if we go back to our original piece of music that I picked to look at, you will notice that we're in 4/4 time, like most rock songs or popular songs are in 4/4 time. Obviously, this measure does not have just 4 straight quarter notes. That would be a really boring song. But if you broke all of these down, all of these fancy notes are the equivalent of 4 quarter notes. So we have 4 beats per measure, and a quarter note will receive 1 beat. So when you go to use time signature and try to figure out what does it, really mean, here's an example that I use. I sometimes put this in front of the class up on the board, and I say, okay, I need a volunteer to come and draw bar lines in these examples. And sometimes kids come up and they start drawing, right here or right here. And other kids say, impossible. You can't answer that. We can't draw the bar lines. We can't answer the question. And then I say, why can't you answer the question? And the answer is, you can't put bar lines in these examples, in these songs, because you don't know how many beats and what kind of note receives one of those beats is in each measure. So then I go to my next screen and I say, okay, I'm going to put 4/4 time here. Now on number 1, can you draw me the bar lines in this song? And the kids say, yes, you can. Because I know in 4/4 time, I have 4 beats per measure. There are 4 beats per measure. The quarter note receives 1 beat. Essentially, I can have 4 quarter notes in a measure or the equivalent of 4 quarter notes. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4 quarter notes. There's a bar line. Here's 1.5 beats plus a half of a beat. So this is 2 beats together. 3, 4. This measure doesn't have 4 quarter notes, but this dotted quarter note is 1.5 beats plus a half. So right here, this is 2 worth 2 quarter notes or 2 beats. Here's our 3rd and our 4th beat. So this 4/4 measure has 4/4 piece of music has 2 measures. Let's go to the next example. Let's say this example, number 2, is going to be in 3/8 time. You can answer this question now because you know that a 3/8 piece of music has 3 beats per measure. So what kind of note gets one of those beats? Is it an eighth note, or a quarter note, or a half note, or a 16th note? Since the 8 is on the bottom, the eighth note receives a beat, so I can have 3/8 notes per measure. My bar line goes there. My bar line goes here. 1, 2, 3. My bar line goes here, and my bar line goes here. So I have 3/8 notes. That's easy. Bar line, 3/8 notes. Here I don't have an eighth note, but I know that my quarter note can fit 2 eighth notes in, so my quarter note in 3/8 time is going to be 2 beats. Here's a third beat. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. If I do the third example here, and I hope you're getting the hang of this, let's say that this example is in, number 3 is in 2/4 time. And I say, okay, draw the bar lines in this 2/4 time. 2/4, 2 beats per measure. There are 2 beats per measure, and the quarter note receives the beat. So I can have 2 quarter notes in a measure. Here's 2 quarter notes, 1, 2. Here's a measure. Here's 2 quarter notes, or 1 quarter note, plus an eighth, which equals a quarter note as a measure. Half note is worth 2 quarter notes, so there's a measure, 1, 2. Dotted quarter plus an eighth is worth 2 beats, and then we have 2 beats here. So hopefully this helps explain time signature and give you the proper wording for answering on your post test how to explain the top number and the bottom number.